Welcome to this episode of the Common Sense Skeptic, back after a summer hiatus that allowed us to enjoy the first summer since 2020. Basically, we celebrated our 4th year of producing feature film-length content by taking an unintended and impromptu summer holiday. And to get us back into production mode for the fall and winter, we're going to get you caught up to date on Andrew and Tristan Tate's multiple and accumulating legal cases through this interview that their American lawyer, Joseph McBride, did with Tim Poole from Tenet Media. After watching this interview, we reached out to Tim to provide a counter-interview to combat the steady stream of nonsense that was spewed by Joe on this episode. But it looks like Tim and company have some other business to attend to first. Something to do with receiving $100,000 per week to promote Russian propagandist talk points. So we'll cover this interview in our own episode and keep the offer open to any YouTuber or podcaster that would like to know actual, grounded facts regarding the Tate's legal issues, which got considerably more intense recently. As a recap, some of you will remember from our episodes last year regarding the Tates that they were arrested, charged, and detained, along with 2 female minions, for trafficking humans in a continuous form and setting up an organized criminal group. On top of the trafficking and organized crime blanket charges, Andrew Tate caught an additional charge of rape in a continuous form, which is a more serious charge than the 2 individual charges of rape that he was originally facing. Tristan Tate caught an instigation to commit violence charge for ordering Georgiana Nagal and Luana Radu to assault and rob a victim, which Gio carried out, so she caught an assault or other violence charge. And because Gio also revenge porned that same victim on her social media accounts, Gio caught additional charges of illegal access to computer systems and alteration of the integrity of computer data. So in that court battle, Gio has the most charges among the 4 co-conspirators. On the other hand, Luana Radu, a former Bucharesti cop, is the only one of the 4 to not have any unique charges from her file on the first indictment. As we go through these charges, remember, these are alleged crimes, not convictions, although the material is taken straight from the English translation of the Romanian indictment handed down June 15, 2023. However, as of mid-August 2024, there was another set of charges filed for a second criminal trial against Tate and his criminal organization, again providing the caveat and tell you to insert alleged as appropriate throughout this encapsulation and for the rest of the episode. As reported worldwide on August 22, 2024, Tate and 5 other associates were arrested on a great number of charges, some of which are far more serious than the first indictment. First off, this laundry list of criminal offenses includes 34 charges of human trafficking using the Loverboy method for the purposes of creating pornography. There is also a new charge unique to Andrew Tate of forcing a 17-year-old minor from Slovakia to produce pornography. First in Britain and then again in Romania after he transported her there. And Andrew Tate has also been charged with sexually assaulting a 15-year-old child on multiple occasions starting in 2020, including vaginal, oral, and anal sex. As a minor, even by Romanian consent law standards, this child could not consent to sexual intercourse with a man more than twice her age. At the time, Mr. Big Shot Cam Pimp would have been at least 34 years old, while he was bedding this girl in junior high. Between the 6 co-defendants, they are accused by DICOT of human trafficking, including the trafficking of minors, sexual intercourse with a minor, that one's on Tate, forming an organized criminal group, money laundering, and influencing statements, the alleged crimes dating between 2014 and 2024. The 2-hour Tim Poole livestream featuring Joseph McBride aired on August 26, 2024, 4 days after the Tate's compound was raided based on the second dossier and the brothers were detained. They were kept overnight in prison and the following day were released in accordance with Romanian law into a state of judicial control. But the new charges against Andrew involving minors got him locked up again in his renovated warehouse for 30 days of house arrest, which is reviewable every 30 days. On top of nabbing the brothers, the arrest raid resulted in more asset seizures, as the Tates have yet to provide a legitimate source of income for the wealth they flaunt. So they lost another 16 vehicles, including Tristan's prized Lada and a minivan, a motorbike, probably the one in this video clip, as well as laptops, thousands of dollars in currency, luxury watches, and data storage drives. All the Tates have to do to get any or all of these assets returned is show Dicot where the money came from that allowed them to purchase these items. So that pretty much gets us caught up to date with the broad strokes of the two separate criminal investigations against Tate and friends in Romania, and we're going to fill in some finer details as we go along. Let's see what their American shyster had to say about these happenings. Of course, we have already covered Joseph McBride a year ago in a special 1-hour Matrix of Lies episode that ripped apart an interview that McBride did with the two manosphere morons Fresh and Fit a year ago this week. Definitely add that episode to your watch list, because there is a lot of great information in there, some of which we will revisit. But right now we're going to keep going with the Tim Pool podcast. This 20-minute excerpt was cut from the 2-hour production, which also covered a large number of unrelated and uninteresting political topics. It's not until around the 1 hour and 17-minute mark that Pool asks McBride about the Tate case. We'll just join the conversation at that point and chime in as necessary.
Let's jump to one last story, and we'll talk about what's going on with Andrew Tate. We have this from the AP. Romanian authorities tow vehicles from Andrew Tate's home after new human trafficking allegations. So this has been ongoing for quite some time. Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan Tate, both of them were kickboxers and dual British U.S. citizens with millions of followers, blah, 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 charged with human trafficking and forming a criminal gang to exploit women. Andrew Tate was also charged with rape in that case. Now, they've been trying to go after this dude. How long has it been? Like 2 years, or what is it?
It's been since it's been almost 3 years now.
Almost 3 years now.
Yeah.
Such a simple question, and McBride can't even get that one right. The raid that began the first Romanian case against the Tates happened in April of 2022. After the raid was conducted, and the Tate brothers provided statements to Dicot, the two of them ran away to Dubai, with whom Romania does not have an extradition treaty. They and their female co-conspirators were caught by Romanian authorities when the boys returned to Romania for Christmas of 2022, so 22 months, less than 2 years ago. They were detained for consecutive 30-day stints because of their previous escape to Dubai. The formal indictment came down in June of 2023, outlining the official roster of charges that the brothers and associates would face, along with another list of charges that were peeled out of this case and into the second full investigation. That was 15 months ago. So when McBride or the Tates tell people this has been going on for over 3 years, they are grossly exaggerating their timeline.
Yeah.
And you actually represent the Tates? Both of them?
I represent both of them. I represent Andrew and Tristan.
McBride does apparently represent both Andrew and Tristan Tate. However, and this is kind of important, not in Romania. His law firm, the McBride Law Firm PLLC, was founded in 2019, and it operates out of a virtual office suite, number 700 Federal Plaza at 305 Broadway, New York, New York. That facility has amenity packages for their virtual offices starting at $179 per month. For $499, you can upgrade to the executive package. Now, judging from the very sparse website, McBride really doesn't have much of a record as a litigator. He mentions the Tates and a single guy from the January 6 fiasco, but no major victories or accolades to his credit. So while McBride might be licensed to practice law in New York, the case he's commenting on is Romanian, and he is not representing the Tates in those proceedings. That dishonor falls to Eugen Videniak, a subservient yes-man that the Tates hired after their original lady lawyer gave them some hard truths.
Our lawyer's a G. Shout out to my lawyer. He is a G. But before we found him, we went and interviewed some bimbo in her suit who sat there and started talking about laws to us.
I walked in there and said, listen, I've committed multiple felonies. Am I going to go to jail? Well, probably. Well, then see ya. Bye. I went to some other man. That was a female. I went to a man's office, said, I've committed multiple felonies.
There are things we can do. We could try this. We could try that.
No problem.
I make one call.
You don't go to jail.
There's no problem.
No problem.
We send somebody else to jail.
We send him. He is the new Andrew. He shave his head and he go. How much
Fix
does
my
it
problems.
cost to make this all go away?
That's what we want to hear.
It would seem that nothing is beneath Eugen. He even passed himself off as a member of the press to disrupt a news conference held by victims of Andrew Tate specifically, who are suing him in civil court in the UK through McHugh Jury and Partners.
Well, no, I just wanted to clarify who we were talking to. He's Mr. Tate's lawyer. Sorry, that's what I wanted to establish. I think you should probably, again, for the sake of transparency and honesty and the manner in which your client and yourself have conducted yourself, maybe be honest.
After that news conference farce that was hijacked by Eugene and Tate's PR woman, we had the pleasure of chatting with Matthew Jury and Jack Beeston from that law firm in an interview on YouTube to make sure that the right information got out to the general public about the case regarding the 4 victims they represent who are suing Andrew Tate civilly for rape and sexual assaults that date back to 2013, reported to the authorities in 2014 and 2015. While the victims would prefer to see Tate face criminal justice and are pleading the UK authorities to reopen their criminal cases that were closed after Tate escaped the UK for Romania, a civil suit is their only recourse at this time for the vicious beatings, strangulations, and rapes that they have sworn in statements happened to them at the hands of Andrew Tate.
The evidence that was gathered at the time, we say, was more than sufficient for a criminal prosecution to have taken place. And it is baffling to us as to why the decision was made not to prosecute in 2019. It makes no sense to us. Whatever happens in the Romanian prosecution, he is now going to be extradited from Romania to face prosecution also in the UK. So the civil case aside, he's got many years ahead of him.
Am I a bad person? Because the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. I fucking loved how much you hated it. Turned me on. Would you rather me pin you down and make you do things you didn't like, or would you rather you didn't like that I was thinking I can do whatever I want to you? Are you seriously so offended I strangled you a little bit? You didn't fucking pass out. Chill the fuck out. Jesus Christ, I thought you were cool. What's wrong with you?
So as we're moving forward, just remember that McBride is not the legal representative of the Tates in Romania, a point that he fails to clarify. Seems a little dishonest, but not nearly so much as the stories he's about to tell about the woman we'll refer to as the American victim of Tristan Tate.
You're saying these allegations are not correct?
These allegations are 1,000% false.
Do you want to walk us through what the story is and what's going on?
From day one, Andrew and Tristan have obviously, they were all over the place, all over the world, very famous, very influential people. Tristan met a girl in Florida from Miami. The girl asked to go back to Romania with him. He was like, I don't know, I don't think it's such a good idea. Romania's a different place. You have a good life here. She's like, no, I want to change. I want to do this with my music career. I want to have a career online, so on and so forth.
So the great thing about the first trial against the Tates in Romania is that the formal indictment was published last June, and we have managed to obtain a full copy of it. So we know exactly what went down according to those records. When the Tate trial date is finally set, we are going to release a mega series that goes through that 400-page document word for word. So there will be no doubt with regards to the misinformation that will be distributed by the Tate camp during that trial. But for now, as McBride monologues, we'll give you the Coles notes as to what the formal indictment says happened from the text messages taken directly from the WhatsApp chat logs between Tristan and the American victim starting on November 15th of 2021. In December of 2021, Tristan and Andrew were going to be in Miami for a War Room conference. Tristan went fishing online for some companionship for while he was there, and he located the American victim on Reddit, but they quickly moved over to WhatsApp for a private conversation that Tristan initiated. After 45 minutes of flirtatious small talk, where Tristan admits to initiating the conversation between the two of them, and also stating that the victim is exactly what he's looking for, Tristan drops the fact that he'll be in Miami for what he calls a business conference and pretty much begs the victim to attend with him as their first date. She agrees. 7 minutes later, Tristan starts talking to the victim about the possibility of bringing her to Europe, in his words, quite often. He was seriously already pressing her about future prospects, without even telling her yet where in Europe he lived. Actually, he sounded kinda desperate. This was November 15th of 2021. In the days that followed, the text conversation between the two continued, and Tristan arrives in Miami 2 weeks later on the 29th of November. The two of them hook up, and things seem to be going well for both of them. By the 6th of December, Tristan directly asked the American victim if she would move to Romania, 3 weeks after he fished her off Reddit. By December 11th, Tristan is already hounding her, asking her at 4:45 in the morning if she is moving to Europe, and if she has her ticket yet. He tells her that he's putting his management team in charge of her OnlyFans page to take her to 100,000 followers in a month. The catch here is that her OnlyFans page at that point in time was dedicated to her music and her amateur photography. A plan was made for her to join him in Romania as his romantic partner by January of 2022. Mid-January, the victim is getting cold feet. She texts him on January 17th at 4:35 p.m. because she is feeling awkward and tested about their interactions together. Tristan pulls the whole "do you trust me" routine when the victim expresses her doubts to win her over again, and he does convince her to come to Romania. On March 28, 2022, Tristan books her ticket from Miami to Bucharest on April 3rd of 2022, and when she landed, Tristan was there to pick her up in a blue Rolls-Royce Wraith that was registered to Andrew to transfer her from the airport to the walled compound. That is the official record of how the American victim came to Romania. Completely different from the garbage that McBride is spewing here. But let's continue.
She goes to Romania. She meets up with him. She's there for 6 days. After the 6th day, she found out that she wasn't going to be Tristan's wife. Tristan had other women in his life. Lo and behold, surprise, surprise. And she turned on them and accused them of a litany of crimes that are unfathomable and 100% unequivocally false. That triggered, she sent text messages into Florida to her parents and to other people, which triggered an investigation and a swatting, if you will, of their house in Romania.
Yes, the American victim was in the company of Tristan and or his associates for only 6 days. According to the chat logs, she was staying in the compound with Tristan and at his beck and call. On April 6th of 2022 at 7:43 in the morning, while she was in the bathroom, Tristan summoned her via a text, saying simply, "Rape in the smoking room, downstairs." That afternoon, Tristan had already started to pressure her into performing sex acts on camera, which was something the victim was uncomfortable with. And Tristan tells the victim that she can make good money doing stuff like this. Tristan then offers her a meeting with the manager of her OnlyFans account, which would either have been Luana or more likely Georgiana. Both Georgiana and Luana have the American victim on their list of trafficked girls that they are being charged with. The next day, April 7th, the American victim wants to have a face-to-face with Tristan as he's been otherwise occupied while getting the girls to try to convince this victim into cam work. On April 8th, the American victim was relocated by Georgiana from the compound to the cam house, which is a short walk away in what's called the American Village. And once there, the American victim saw what the Tates and the bottom bitches were all about. At 4:09 a.m., she texted Tristan, asking if she could stay in a hotel instead, saying, "I don't mean to be rude, but I can't live like this." Tristan responded 6 hours later, ignored her concerns, and told her not to leave the house. Meanwhile, the American victim met a girl in that house, whom Andrew had brought to Romania from Moldova under the false pretense of marriage, to raise a family as he promised her. Instead, she was dumped off at the cam house after being picked up by Georgiana at the airport, then steadily pressured into performing on camera. This woman was reportedly raped twice by Andrew as he tried to break her down. Once in an orgy where he used liquor and other women to break down her defenses, this occurring in the Marriott Hotel in Bucharest on March 20th of 2022, and the second time a week later at the walled compound where the Moldovan victim swears Tate physically and sexually abused her, threatening to rape her to get her pregnant, and further threatening to lock her in a room until she went crazy. And that happened on March 27th of 2022. The American victim befriended the Moldovan rape victim, and they planned to leave the locked house together under the cover of night, hoping to make it to London, where the Moldovan's sister lived. The American victim, who was in touch with her parents by text, let them know what was going on at the house and what their plans were to escape. But her parents understood that she was in far more trouble than she was aware, and they contacted a family friend, a Marine with training in how to deal with human trafficking situations. He informed his commanding officer, who alerted the American embassy, and according to the indictment, at 7:05 a.m. on April 11th, the local voluntary police force was notified, but Tate took over the case by order of the Baftea District Court Prosecutor's Office. Tate commenced raids on the walled compound and the cam house, and upon entry, Tate removed 4 female persons believed to be human trafficked from the cam house. This is what McBride refers to as the swatting of the Tate houses. However, swatting refers to a false call-in of a situation requiring an armed response. Tate did in fact rescue human trafficking victims as a result of their successful raid. At no point did the American victim accuse the Tates of a crime. She did not contact local law enforcement. She had nothing to do with the raid that was conducted. She gave her sworn statement and provided the text chat history from her phone as evidence of her truthfulness, and Tate took the reins from there. Tate is the only entity accusing the Tates and their accomplices of the crimes listed in the indictment.
Now, it's worthy to consider, we must consider the fact that at that point, the United Kingdom had already spent over $2 billion in trying to cancel Andrew and Tristan. So there are a lot of opportunistic people, nefarious characters, who would love nothing more in the world than to see these guys jailed and silenced forever.
So now, McBride is talking about the UK, and he drops the figure of $2 billion that he says the UK has spent to silence the Tate brothers. And we thought that this was a number that he just pulled out of his ass, with no validity at all. But as it turns out, due to the radicalization of youth in the UK, the government has had to provide an extra £2 billion to their nationwide education system to fund programs meant to stamp out the misogyny being spread in schools by boys who have been brainwashed by Andrew Tate. So it's not $2 billion to silence Tate, it's £2 billion in the UK alone to counteract the massively negative effect that Tate has had on UK youth.
The Romanian prosecutor was able, under Romanian law, to bury the facts of the case and not even present all the material facts to the judge or the Romanian public for the first year of the case.
That statement is blatantly false. The Tates were arrested in Romania on December 29, 2022. The formal indictment was filed June 15th of 2023, less than 6 months after the Tates were arrested. They were indicted based on the collection of evidence and through the seizures of electronic equipment from December 2022 to June 15th of 2023, following the investigation that was in process while the brothers were hiding from Romanian authorities in Dubai, and evidence is not released during an investigation. McBride's claim that prosecutors held on to the evidence for over a year? Complete bullshit. Also, this is a single copy of the evidence file that was collected for this case. 75,000 pages worth. This was never going to be released piecemeal. It's cataloged, indexed, and distilled down to the indictment, which in itself is in the neighborhood of 400 pages. That's what the Tates were handed on June 15th of 2023. The Tates have had it in hand now for over 15 months.
We were brought on at some point. We investigated the case thoroughly. We knew and we continue to know that all the allegations against them are false. We understood that the minute that woman from Florida, once she sent these defamatory missiles into Florida, that she was on the hook for defamation in Florida and conspiracy in Florida. So we sued her in a Florida court. We just survived motions to dismiss in that court. That case is proceeding. That case is going well.
So yes, you heard that correctly. The Tate brothers enlisted McBride to sue their American victim for defamation and conspiracy in a Florida court for telling her parents in confidence what she saw take place in the cam house and why she was going to leave early. This is complete victim intimidation. The American victim did not contact law enforcement directly to accuse the brothers of a crime. She did not contact the media. She has not, as an individual, spoken out about her experiences. She is not doing interviews or making money on the talk show circuit. Therefore, even if Tate had not located 6 other victims through their investigation, defamation did not occur. The American victim merely wanted out of the house after finding out what was actually happening there. What's worse is that in this lawsuit, this idiot also named the victim's mother and father, the Marine they contacted, and the Moldovan rape victim who never even set foot in the US. Also, part of the $5 million suit against the victim involves a claim of conspiracy. Well, there's a big problem with that claim, since 4 of the 5 people charged in that civil suit have been released by the court after considering their circumstances on a case-by-case basis. The Moldovan girl, who never set foot in the US, was removed from the case because she's outside Florida's jurisdiction. The Marine was released from the case because he followed proper reporting procedures up his chain of command, And the victim's parents were the people most recently removed from the suit after the judge went through the details of the case involving them, and he also removed most of the complaints against the victim herself. You cannot be a conspiracy of one. One needs to have a co-conspirator to be involved in a conspiracy, and all the other parties have been dismissed on all accusations contained in the suit. Further, the law may require that at least one overt act be taken in furtherance of that agreement to constitute an offense of conspiracy. In the lawsuit, Andrew and Tristan Tate are accusing the victim of trying to extort them for $200,000, and they have filed text conversations between the American victim and the Moldovan victim that they have sworn into evidence as being proof of conspiracy to defraud. Recently, a new Twitter account called Tate Updates SX put out screenshots of these text conversations, branding them as official WhatsApp chat logs, in an attempt to prove to the tater tots that these two were trying to frame the brothers. The problem is, these text logs are obviously faked. The first clue is that in this screenshot, every date and timestamp is identical, 10:42:29 p.m. on April 6, 2022. That's the first giveaway. And on April 6th, the American victim was still living in the walled compound with Tristan the same day he tried to convince her into starting cam work. She was not moved over to the cam house until April 8th, so big fail on that doc. The second clue is, the full conversations have been leaked, and we can see how the chats evolved with proper date timestamps before they were rearranged by Tate or his associates. For example, this page contains two different segments that are glued together, when in fact they are separated by over an hour of time on the thread. The first on April 10th at 10 to 10 p.m., where the American victim tells her parents that she is remaining calm, deceiving the brothers to make it easier for her to leave, and the one at the bottom of the page where the American victim's mom is talking about the Marines and the American squad being activated. The conversation and context in between these posts has been omitted. If these apparently forged documents are how Tate was planning on proving his case in Florida, he's going to be in for a rude awakening. Additionally, as we mentioned, the Marine who was involved in this chain of events was removed from the case in February of 2024, Judge Robin Rosenberg stating at the time, the sergeant provided valuable information to help investigative authorities when he forwarded a woman's allegation of human trafficking against Tate to a U.S. embassy and military officials. He did what the legal system encourages people who suspect criminal activity to do: alert authorities with the power to investigate and act. According to court documents, the sergeant's actions set in motion the investigation that culminated in a raid of the Tate's Romanian property, where prosecutors in the Balkan nations say Tate and his younger brother Tristan coerced multiple women into making porn on OnlyFans, while the duo pocketed a large portion of the revenue. Considering the Marine sergeant was commended on his actions, it would stand to reason that the American victim's actions, statements, and fears were entirely reasonable considering the outcome of the raid. So, the Florida lawsuit is frivolous at best. But while we're on the topic of conspiracy, the Tates filing these cases against their victims can reasonably be described as a planned conspiracy by the brothers and their legal team that allowed them to publish the victims' names, addresses, personal details, etc. out into the public domain, enabling the Tater Trash Army to harass and intimidate both victims and their family members. This is a despicable act that again should be enough to get McBride disbarred. McBride filed that Florida suit on July 13th of 2023, and even the laundry list of complaints was meant as an overwhelming intimidation tactic. Damages exceeding $5 million for defamation, defamation per se, commercial defamation, false imprisonment, tortious interference of a business relationship, civil conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligent infliction of emotional distress. These two gangster pimps apparently felt the need to bully a 20-year-old female victim into silence. As a result of the harassment from Tate fanatics, the judge in the case ordered the names of the victims to be anonymized, making it illegal for the Tates or the representatives or their associates to name these persons in public. That motion was filed on September 8th of 2023. That same day, Joseph McBride appeared on a Fresh and Fit podcast that is still up on Rumble, complete with a link to the original unredacted filing document in the video description, which is in itself a violation of the court order as it contains the names and personal details of the victims. On top of linking the document, throughout the conversation, McBride, along with Thing 1 and Thing 2, constantly named the victim whose name McBride was now forbidden to speak. And since the linked document is not redacted, Fresh and Fit should be held liable for breaking the law where that victim is concerned. But they were not the only large podcaster channel to pull a stunt like this. Candace Owens also named the victim on August 5th, 2023, doing so continuously in her episode 202 on YouTube, while she was still associated with the Daily Wire, even as other hosts on Daily Wire such as Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles had publicly denounced the Tate brothers. Not only did Candace Owens repeatedly name the victim, who was a minor at the time of the legal scenarios she was describing, Owens censored out the name of the 57-year-old man who had repeatedly raped the American victim while she was a minor. After taking 6 years to get this case to trial in Delray, Florida, Keith Fox, also known as the Yoga Fox, was sentenced to 24 years in prison for sexual offenses against this same victim and another female victim, and he's also now a registered sex offender. To wrap up this segment, McBride told Poole that this case in Florida is going well for them.
That case is proceeding. That case is going well.
That's another huge exaggeration. The case is now whittled down to only the defamation claim, and is moving forward into discovery against the lone remaining American victim. And as soon as Tate's doctored text conversation logs are clarified using the real deal from the Romanian indictment, or straight from the source, Tate will be suffering another brutal defeat that will cost him more than his serial tax evasion charge out of the UK that was tried earlier in the year. In a very quietly reported civil case, UK law enforcement authorities determined that the Tates owed back taxes on money seized in their UK bank accounts. Money that the Tates cannot show investigators how they came by legally, which may again lead to more criminal investigations. The Tates did not offer any exhibits in their own defense, and a critically thinking mind would churn over whether or not those exhibits would have given law enforcement more meat to chew on. When this ridiculous intimidation tactic was originally announced in February of 2023, Tate declared it was going to be for $300 million, but they decided to walk that number back a bit, so as not to appear greedy. Here is the sum total of the thought process that went into determining how much to sue Tristan's lover-boyed American victim for.
What are y'all suing her for? How much?
Right now, it's $5 million.
Okay.
Look,
Which she doesn't have that. She
Compared to what they lost, that's nothing.
yeah, that's nothing. I think this is more of a sending a message than,
Yeah.
you know.
a lot of people were like, this is Andrew and Tristan Tate. Like, why isn't that $5 billion? And there's a few reasons, right? It's number one, we know she doesn't have it.
Hell no. She don't even got 1M.
Number two, we didn't want the court to think that this was strictly about money.
Yeah.
Do they deserve to be compensated for their damages?
Way more, yeah.
Of course. But this is about the pursuit of truth. So when we were bouncing around the ideas of money and what should we do, it's got to look, and, you know, we were like, what is $5 million? $5 million is the cost of a Bugatti. So Andrew was like, I think I need a Bugatti out of this at least.
Yeah, okay.
So, you know,
Wow.
he's slick. I just took that away from him, but he's slick like that. And, you know, well, he deserves to get it.
It will definitely be interesting to see how loud these jackasses are laughing when the cell doors close behind the Tates in Rahova prison, because that is what they truly deserve.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
What we were able to do was publish the truth of everything that happened related to that story into the Romanian complaint, right? The complaint has hundreds of paragraphs. The entire story is told there. Once that complaint was published, the Romanian prosecutor, the Romanian judges, the Romanian courts, the Romanian public consciousness, and certainly the Romanian defense team got a hold of it, was able to educate the Romanian public and the court there. As a result of that, they got out of jail, they got off of house arrest, they were able to travel the country, and they were just really recently granted the ability to travel the EU. Somebody freaked out someplace and made a call and said, we have several theories as to why this happened, and said double down the prosecution on them.
At this point, we have to make some additional clarification. The loosening of judicial controls governing the movements of the Tates during their criminal trial in Romania was in no way whatsoever affected by the American civil case. 2 points before we directly tear these claims to shreds. First, McBride fails to mention that before they tried to sue the victims in Florida, they attempted to file criminal complaints against the American victim and the Moldovan rape victim in Romania. That suit was filed on April 12th of 2023, exactly 1 year after the first raid on the Tate compounds. 2 weeks later, the Romanian judiciary rejected the criminal charges against the two women. The Tates appealed that decision and lost again, with the decision declared final in June of 2023. As the article in the Romanian national press stated, the closure of this case regarding the misleading of the judicial bodies gives credibility to the two female injured parties. Certainly a quote for them to keep on hand for future use. Second point, McBride seems to be under the impression that in Romania, the Tates are going to be tried in a court of public opinion, that whatever he publishes will somehow affect the outcome of their criminal trial. And nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, there will not even be a jury of the Tate's peers deciding their fate, leaving the Tate legal team no one to confuse with misinformation. No, there will be one single judge deliberating the facts here, in a courtroom that sees human trafficking and criminal indictments every day as a matter of course. If you take away the Tate social media accounts, the brothers are very quickly reduced to being very pedestrian criminals. They only think there's something special. Meanwhile, the conviction rate of prosecutors in this court for human traffickers reportedly runs around 97.7%. Maybe these two criminal trials against the Tates and their criminal organization can finally bump that number over 98%. So because there is no jury to snowball, with a seasoned judge presiding over the case when it goes to trial, no matter how much fake news material the Tates publish, for the benefit of the Romanian public, it will have no effect on the court proceedings, as they have not to date. So let's set the record straight. The reason why the brothers were released from prison, then moved to house arrest, and on down the line, is because Romania has civil rights and a process in place that allows for defendants to move toward eased restrictions if they are following the rules. The reason why the two boys were locked up in the first place is because they fled to Dubai after the April 2022 raid. After their initial preventative detention and 2 extensions of 30 days, the Tates were granted release to house arrest. After several months of being on house arrest, because they had played by the rules, they were then allowed to move throughout Ilfov County. Then conditions were relaxed to travel throughout Romania. And although at one point they had been granted conditional movement throughout the EU, that was immediately challenged by prosecutors and rescinded in July of 2024. That rescission was in no small part because Andrew Tate told a useful idiot podcaster named Aidan Ross that if he wanted to get in a final interview with the Tates, he had less than a week to get to Romania.
Andrew had hit me up. He said, hey, I'm going to be leaving Romania soon and probably never coming back. If you want to come over and do a week of long streams and content before I leave, I think it'll be big. And he said it's basically now or never.
That video was sent to the lawyers for the UK civil case at McHugh Jury and Partners to pass along up the chain to the constabularies that were actively investigating Tates for criminal charges in another jurisdiction. And within days, the UK issued arrest warrants for both brothers along with the extradition request. Both brothers were arrested and dragged into the cop shop and before the judge, where an extradition request for what is the third criminal trial for the brothers was granted. This one in the UK involving dozens of sworn sexual assault and trafficking victims of both brothers. The only caveat before enacting that extradition order from Romania to the UK is that Romania gets first crack at these defendants. One other thing that this set of events brought about was closing off the Tates' possible escape plan to Dubai. See, the UAE does not have an extradition treaty with Romania, but it does have an extradition agreement with the UK. And now that criminal charges have been filed in the UK, should the Tates get picked up in Dubai, they would immediately be sent to face justice in Britain. That trial is ready to go as soon as their two scrawny asses land at Heathrow. As for their current level of judicial controls, Tristan remains free to move throughout Romania so long as he checks in with the local police department on a regular basis. And Andrew, the mastermind of the outfit, is restricted to house arrest, being reviewed every 30 days, and was already renewed for another 30-day stint, mainly because his new charges in his second criminal case in Romania revolve around minor children. McBride was either being intentionally misleading and or completely ignorant regarding the Tates' current restriction levels when he told Tim Pool that the Tates were recently permitted to move freely throughout the EU, then never providing these very important updates. And again, going back to the opener, the Florida civil case had absolutely nothing to do with any of it. Just before we went on break, the Tate brothers' self-proclaimed legal rep, Joseph D. McBride, Esquire, was saying something stupid and easy to debunk. Let's refresh your memory.
They were able to travel the country, and they were just really recently granted the ability to travel the EU. Somebody freaked out someplace and made a call and said, we have several theories as to why this happened, and said double down the prosecution on them.
We covered the first part of that statement in part 1. So let's pick it up again with the claim that the faceless they wanted Romanian authorities to double down on the prosecution of the Tates. The second case that has been brought forward in Romania that McBride is referring to is mainly made up of crimes identified in the first indictment of June 15, 2023, but they were peeled out of that document for further investigation over a year ago. The reason why they were disjuncted was so they could be investigated further and other possible witnesses and victims located. And it would appear that was the right move because those investigations led to a couple of changes. Originally, in the June 2023 indictment, it was Tristan who was suspected of trafficking minors into prostitution, with a different named victim. And that charge may still come to pass when the formal indictment for the second case comes down. But as of now, it is Andrew on the hook for forcing a minor into porn and the repeated rape of a child. There was no panic at the prosecutor's office to double down, and the case is certainly not falling apart, such as McBride is suggesting here.
So they have a bunch of allegations from people that they've interviewed from the past few years. 33 women or so. 30 of them were interviewed, and after the interview and or during the interview gave statements, affirmative statements in defense of Andrew and Tristan.
Wow.
Saying this is absolute crap.
First off, the number of victims originally named in the second set of charges was 35, including the minor child, not 33. That number continues to climb with another dozen victims recently coming forward, but let's work with the press release from the time of their second Romanian arrest and raid. Let's assume that what McBride said was true, that 30 of the 35 victims told the authorities during interviews that the allegations, in his word, were absolute crap. Two things to keep in mind here are, one, that would leave 5 victims telling authorities on the record that the accusations are not absolute crap. And 2, we know from newly leaked evidence files that Andrew is known to bribe these girls into compliance. In fact, the minor child that Andrew Tate is charged with raping an unknown number of times in 2020 has sworn out a statement with DICOT, as reported by a journalist in Romania named Mircea Barbu, who follows the Tate case closely. Tells quite a story in 5 short tweets. In the first one, it states that after the replacement of preventative measures, so after the Tates got out of jail, they started contacting all the women from their past who are not yet detained as part of the first accusation. Second paragraph, this particular minor victim swears she was promised 5,000 euros to declare only good things about Tate, as another girl did, but he only paid her half that amount in British pounds. That tells us 3 things. 1, that he promised her money to do this. 2, that he also promised another girl money to do this, a girl that this minor could name. And 3, that Tate ripped her off in the end, only paying her half of what he promised. Third paragraph details how Tate wanted her to swap out her own phone so that conversations between the two could not be unlocked. Fourth paragraph is DICOT concluding that through other means with an obvious intimidating effect, Andrew Tate tried to get them to not appear at the hearings, not to give statements, or to give false statements. And the fifth paragraph has the victim telling DICOT, he asked me what I need so that when I arrive at DICOT, I would only say good things about him.
How much does it cost to make this all go away?
That's what we want to hear.
Even if this child, who was 15 years old at the time, was the only victim on the list of 35 to come forward, this would be enough. We'll look forward to the official indictment document to see how these charges are solidified. However, shortly after this interview with Tim Pool came out, on September 9th, the BBC released a new documentary entitled Andrew Tate Accused, which investigated the charges some of the women in Tate's past were leveling at him. And these victims were definitely not telling the interviewers that the prosecutors were full of crap.
I've spoken to women in the UK who make allegations of sexual violence against him, going back years.
I went up the stairs with him to the bedroom. He started kissing me on the bed, and then he just looked up at the ceiling, and I remember thinking, this is weird. Yeah, and he said, I'm just debating whether I should rape you or not. Out of the blue, he just got up, grabbed me by the throat, smashed me to the back of the bed, strangling me extremely hard. And he's telling me to take my trousers off, and I'm like refusing. And I'm like, no, Andrew, you said you wouldn't. And he's getting more and more angry at me, strangling me, hurling abuse at me, threatening me.
Afterwards, Anna says Andrew Tate sent her text messages and voice notes about rape and sexual violence.
Am I a bad person? Because the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. I loved how much you hated it. Turned me on. Why am I like that? Why?
Several women in that half-hour special described how Andrew Tate turned violent during sexual encounters so he could have sex with them when they were out cold. And apparently violent sex involving choking is a trait that Andrew shares with his brother Tristan, because women from his past were part of that interview as well.
A few days after arriving in Romania from the UK, Daisy says she broke up with Tristan Tate. But she says that didn't stop him.
He'd come in the room and he was wanting to have sex with me. I told him no 10 to 15 times, that I didn't want to, and he just put his hands around my throat and proceeded to do what he wanted to do anyway. I just hate the fact that I couldn't even stick up for myself.
Testimony from any one of these victims independently is capable of bringing down one or both Tate brothers, along with the people in their organization that helped facilitate any aspect of these crimes. The fact that there are dozens of victims that have sworn out statements against the two men only serves to demonstrate that this behavior from them is an established pattern of criminality. McBride spinning his yarn otherwise will only backfire on him when these cases move into the trial phase.
Two of the women, so 31 and 32, Andrew and Tristan are being, it's alleged that they laundered money, right? And that they laundered money by giving their baby mamas lavish gifts, putting them in lavish cars, and buying them houses. Andrew and Tristan's defense is, these are my baby mamas. Of course, I'm going to take care of them because that's what good men do. The baby mamas are in their camp as well, in defense. There may be one other person that they're still working on, some shadow character someplace who doesn't have a story, who we don't know what's going on. Long story short, the entire case against them is crap.
Well, we already know that the case against them is not crap, even if the final girl standing is the 15-year-old that Andrew Tate is reported to have raped. But let's investigate the daddy card that McBride is trying to play here for the Tates as he attempts to portray them as loving, doting fathers. If only there were some way to demonstrate the affection that these men have for their offspring and the mothers of their children.
I had to, and this is actually good. I wouldn't, I guess, admit this on a live, but I had to downgrade one of the mothers of my kids from the house she was living in. I needed her to understand that you do not fuck with me. And she was living in a 4-bedroom rented house, and I was paying the rent and all the bills, and I pay everything. I said, okay, you know what? You want to fuck with me in that way? That's cool. You have 30 days to get out of that house. Here's your new apartment, 2 bedrooms. Well, what do you mean? Now your child doesn't have a garden to play in. Well, that's your fault. That is not my fault. Take her to the fucking park. I don't take shit. So it's never going to get to that level where they think, oh, well, let me call the U.S. Embassy, and because he's a citizen, maybe I can, because they know the consequence. It's not going to turn out good for them or me or anybody.
Seems like Father of the Year material, right? So downgraded the mother and the child to an apartment just to be a dick, and holding his daughter's well-being ransom until the mother capitulated to whatever demand Tristan was making. What's interesting about this video, if you're reading between the lines, is it shows how women had obviously been contemplating turning Tristan into the American embassy prior to this video being made, but the women obviously feel locked into this arrangement despite their misgivings. And we know from the June 2023 indictment that Tristan had instructed Georgiana to not provide his baby mama, Abigail, with a caregiver for their daughter unless Abby continued to make porn content for him on OnlyFans. The caregiver herself provided the details of this strong-arm tactic and will appear as a witness. She was involved with the Tates as a child care provider for a period of time that included February of 2022. This witness also cleaned the cam room studios in between online porn sessions. So here we have Tristan, forcing the mother of his daughter to put herself on full display on the internet for money for him.
You know, the top girls, they earned a lot, but they weren't working for money. They were working because they liked me. They respected me. They wanted my attention. They wanted to end up as my main girl, or the girl who had my kids, whatever is their dream was. So they'd work and work away, and I'd keep large percentages of the money. That's one of the reasons I got so rich in this business.
As it turns out, when it comes to the baby mamas for these two clowns, we recently saw some additional insight through a wiretap leak that came out August 23, 2024, regarding how much love and care and attention that the Tates give the mothers of their children. To call these girls Tate broodmares would be a generous accounting.
Okay, you have kids, damn, I didn't know that.
Why wouldn't I?
Did they all have different baby mothers?
I mean, not all different, but there's been a few ovens to bake the bread. Women are slow, G. Like, I say this all the time. I'm like, listen, I have no problems having kids with one woman. It's fine. But if you're going to take 9 months to grow a single, simple baby, then you're just messing about. That's your problem.
Come on, bro.
The wiretap leak shows a voicemail transcript from Andrew to Tristan, talking about getting their respective girlfriends pregnant, then sending them home so the brothers could continue partying with the other girls for the rest of the summer. And after giving birth to bastard children for these two degenerates, the women would wind up right back on camera together, as it turns out. Here we've got Tristan's baby mama, and apparently Andrew's baby mama, in a shower together, Vivian under the name Kiss of a Cobra, and Abigail under the moniker Oh My Mel. But since we're talking about baby mamas, and McBride had brought up laundering assets, this probably bears mentioning. Abigail Tyson, the baby mama in question, now controls shares of the Tate's former webcam enterprise. The suspicion is that when the boys knew their lives were going to get raided, thanks to the insider information that Luana got from the local cop shop, the Tates needed to dispose of the webcam business entity. And originally that company went to Georgiana Nagal, Andrew Tate's bottom bitch in the operation. But when it came to light that Gio was also going to be brought up on charges alongside the brothers and Luana, the business then transferred to Abby in Dubai. This is detailed in the first indictment of June 15, 2023. This is hiding assets more than money laundering, but it is still aiding and abetting known felons. And who knows how that will rinse out in the wash.
The latest arrests and everything?
Process is the punishment. They went after them. They arrested them again. They took all of their cars. They took more jewelry. They took more money. We're north of $20 million in cash and gold in cars and assets that have been taken from them. I mean, Andrew's had like 60 cars taken up. I mean, one Bugatti's worth $5 million.
This time, McBride was totally pulling numbers out of his ass. They were never that high. But there had been developments in what got seized and when, and some vehicles have been returned to their rightful owners. In the first indictment, there were 11 cars seized prior to June 15, 2023. This is a full list of them found in the indictment. None of these vehicles, nor any other asset from the first criminal indictment raid, have been returned to the Tates. Nothing. When the second raid and seizure came down, another 16 vehicles were taken. That would have made for a total of 27 vehicles. But some of these vehicles were released by the court recently because, and this is important, the Tates do not own them. The cars belong to Cannon Run Limited out of Germany. They do not belong to the Tates. So when McBride is trying to tell people that the Tates had 60 cars taken, that is a lie. When McBride tells people the Tates had north of $20 million of assets seized, that is another lie. And when Tate announced they got all their seized assets back, that was the biggest lie of them all.
So this is about silencing them. This is about the fact that Andrew and Tristan are very influential, especially when it comes to young men. The mainstream media, the European Union and the governments over there, and everything that's involved in the, as Andrew calls the matrix or the deep state, wants young men to be docile, wants young men to be not aggressive, wants young men not to believe themselves. Their message is you're a young man, you should believe in yourself, you should go out there, you should kill it, you should take care of your body, you should have discipline over your mind, discipline over your emotions, or go out there and be somebody in the world.
Far too many Tate followers are willing to give them a pass because of the recycled self-help tripe that Tate passes off as wisdom. None of it is original, none of it is new, a lot of it is crap. Nuggets of wisdom like drink coffee non-stop, and smoking cigars will raise your testosterone level.
Testosterone level is a fantastic way to measure your overall health as a man.
But nicotine has a positive correlation of testosterone.
Absolutely, it's been proven. Yep, it's been proven repeatedly. So that's why I love nicotine so much.
In case you're wondering, this claim about nicotine is absolute low IQ nonsense, with studies proving the exact opposite. And of course, the health risks of long-term smoking have not changed. Chronic respiratory disease, lung cancer, and premature death are still high probability outcomes. Most of the work hard, nose to the grindstone, and workout information young men probably would have heard before from male relatives or teachers or coaches. The difference is that those people in a young man's life are not flashing around rented cars and renovated warehouses and paid prostitutes the way Tate does. So Tate is grabbing these boys by their egos, promising them these lifestyle results, while taking away their money to coach them. And all this talk about the Matrix, do you know when Tate started talking about this nonsense? The very first time that Tate ever mentioned the Matrix was right after his arrest on December 29th of 2022.
The Matrix has attacked me.
That's a fact confirmed by Grok AI, just to be on the safe side. Before then, it was all about the pimping hose degree and Hustlers University. But the Tates had to change it up, because the webcam business was gone. So now, the self-help regurgitations being produced are how the Tates exploit foolish boys that succumb to the pyramid scheme known as the real world. After being brought into that pyramid scheme, TRW grooms you to the point where you believe that a war room membership will take you the final mile to becoming a multimillionaire playboy. But once inside the war room, they're more likely to find only a cesspool of humanity, a forum for human traffickers and pimps, trading secrets on how to exploit girls the same way that Tate describes in detail in the PhD program that he used to sell.
Now, do they have a history of saying wild stuff on the internet? Of course they do. Most of that stuff is 10 years old or older. If I had a camera running when I was 25 years old, it probably would have been good stuff, right? I'm 46 now. I changed tremendously in the past 10 years and tremendously over the past 20, as have they, right? They're different men now.
This is another argument that you hear a lot from the Tates.
Okay, this is 10 years ago. What the context is, has he changed since?
The idea that you did something 10 years ago, which you would no longer agree with, is one thing. But the second thing, to come along to the conclusion that you now have no value to add to the world would be massively unfair. Being very honest, I don't think what I did was really that bad. I didn't sell drugs. I didn't kill anybody. I mean, what did I do? I found a gap in the market and I helped some people organize some accounts on an internet website. That's what I did. And they're going to try and criticize me and crucify me for the next 100 years because of it, because of clips that were made 10 years ago. And this idea that you're going to find somebody and 10 or 11 years ago, they did something which might even be slightly distasteful, not even illegal, and you're going to crucify him forever. I just don't believe that's genuine virtue. I think it's just an attack.
All this stuff happened 10 years ago, and the argument against this has two different prongs. First, in the UK and in Romania, there is no statute of limitation on sex crimes, so these charges could be brought forward even 10, 20 years from now and still be equally valid. But the more important thing here is that no, these guys did not change up what they were doing 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the brothers were still in England, being admonished by the Luton authorities for reports of sexual and physical abuse. The cam house in Romania was operating on the day that the house was raided. Full stop. Here's Tristan showing off the cam rooms in the garage of their warehouse compound. They didn't move to Romania until 2016.
Me running a webcam studio, paid for this car, that car, these two cars, and this giant fucking house. So during the conversion work of this house, I didn't know what to do with the garage, and I didn't know which cars to keep in the garage. So instead, I've done this. Come with me, have a look. I made so much money in this industry, I just can't quit. I'm addicted. I've got a beautiful girl who's holding the camera right now, and I've built her and some of her friends a webcam studio in my garage. Come look. Beds, lights, internet setup, and the next room. Come on, baby.
Now this video isn't dated, but there are clues in the video, and using them, we can estimate when this video was taken with more accuracy than the 2017 purchase date provided by the New York Post article. How are we going to do that? with Google Earth. All aerial shots on Google Earth taken by satellite are archived and retrievable by sliding the date bar at the top left of the screen. And for whatever reason, this particular area of Romania gets passed over frequently, although not always with the same resolution. Going back to August of 2012, we can see the property as the warehouse it once was, in a rough-looking industrial area. Zooming in, you can see just a warehouse, with a cement parking pad for employees. By August of 2013, the property begins to convert. The perimeter got walled in, and parking got moved outside the wall. September 2014 shows the garage foundation being laid, and a pool being dug out, and a year later the pool is finished in a nice blue tile. This is the clearest image of the compound from that era, a year after the Tates bought the place, according to the New York Post. Blue pool with grass around the pool and behind the garage, and what looks to be a kid play area between the garage and the warehouse. Between November 2019 and May 2020, the pool was retiled with this god-awful red color. Why anybody would retile a blue pool in blood red would be pure speculation, but Tristan Tate is known for his virgin fetish. Between November of 2020 and March of 2021, they began a major earthwork project that would swap out all the paved surfaces from the gate to the garage with a cobblestone that now ran between the garage and the warehouse and extended behind the garage where the white-roofed training shed was built. And this is how the place sat on April 14th of 2023, without a single car in the driveway. That progression over time gives us landmarks. First, any photos or video showing the red pool on the Tate property are no older than November of 2019, 5 years ago. And any videos showing the new brickwork are no older than March of 2021, about 3.5 years ago. That brickwork belies Tristan in his tour video. First, it's all matching interlocking cobblestone. Second, there's enough room to park at least 4 cars along the logoed fence. And third, the space between the warehouse and the garage is no longer a kiddie play area, and is wall-to-wall cobblestone. Therefore, the oldest this video could be, where Tristan Tate is showing off his webcam bedrooms, is March of 2021. So after the worst of COVID was over, and even during COVID, Andrew Tate was selling PhD refresher courses.
So when you're starting OnlyFans as a man, what I'm going to offer you, because you bought this course, is I'm going to offer you one of the screenshots you've just seen that shows, because these screenshots you can't fabricate, these screenshots are legit, that shows you have a girl in the top 3.7% or the top 1.4% of people on the website. So now, by buying this course, what you've got is you've got social proof. I'm currently filming this during the COVID pandemic. You may be watching this later on, but right now during the pandemic, OnlyFans is blown up. The owner of OnlyFans tweeted out, girls are desperately signing up because it's the easy way for them to make money, but without instruction. Pimpin' Ken. A hoe without instruction is headed for self-destruction. You bought this course, you want to make your money back, and you want to continue to make money for a long time, so you want your girls to be elite. I'm going to teach you how to do that.
And here's Vivian joining Andrew on the broadcast. According to the June 23rd indictment, both Tate brothers were actively recruiting, harboring, and exploiting girls throughout 2021 and 2022. Again, McBride is knowingly lying about his client's situation, about something that is dead easy to prove. And he's about to demonstrate something else that he has no grasp on, the lover boy method of human trafficking.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There's no complainants right now?
They say that Andrew and Tristan use what's called the lover boy method, which means that if you're working for me and you're my employee and you feel positive about me in some way,
You're being tricked.
You're being tricked. And because I have the capability to one day human traffic you, you're guilty of the lover boy. I'm guilty of using lover boy. And because you've been lover boyed, your story about why you're defending me is not really worthwhile listening to because your mind has been screwed. So they take a very paternalistic approach.
It goes without saying that what McBride is telling Tim Pool here in no way represents the loverboy method of human trafficking. Human trafficking is defined by the United Nations Trafficking in Persons Protocol, made easy to remember by the acronym AMP, A-M-P. Act, means, and purpose. If there is any doubt whether or not a person has been human trafficked, this chart helps make that determination. The act can be recruiting, transporting, transferring, harboring, or receiving a person. The means by which they do this is through threats, coercion, fraud, deception, abuse of power, preying on vulnerability, or abduction. For the purposes of exploiting that person through prostitution, sexual exploitation, forced labor, slavery, servitude, or the very grim purpose of removing their organs. One condition of all three of these criteria must be met for human trafficking to apply, if the target is over 18 years old. If the target is under 18, by international agreement, that person is considered a child, and the means column disappears. So how they did it does not matter. Therefore, anybody who recruits a child for sexual exploitation is a human trafficker. Both the Tate brothers continually tell people they can't be human traffickers because they never abducted anybody or tied them up and transported them, as portrayed in the Avicii video, For a Better Day.
So they come along and they said, oh, you're a human trafficker. I was like, well, I've never transported anyone. I've never kidnapped anyone. I've never restricted anyone. I've never held anyone. They said, no, but you're a human trafficker via the lover boy method. I said, what's that? It's where you pretend to love them. So what, being nice? So I was nice to some girls 10 years ago? Is that my crime? Maybe I did love them.
That triad obviously qualifies as human trafficking. But the Loverboy method, despite being a far more subtle trifecta, will get you to the exact same place. If the trafficker, in this case either of the Tate brothers, recruits a girl with the deception of having a romantic relationship with the brother, but the brother intends to use that relationship to groom her into sexual exploitation, that combination checks all the boxes. But let's see how many other boxes the Tate criminal organization checked off, using only the Moldovan victim that Tate is accused of raping in a continuous form. Recruiting. That was mainly the domain of the brothers, as was transporting the victims to Romania, most often by plane. We know from the indictment that the Moldovan victim's plane ticket was bought by Tate through Georgiana, and she was picked up at the airport, then transported to the cam house by Georgiana. This would also qualify as a transfer. Then once at the cam house, that victim was harbored under lock and key and the watchful eyes of armed security guards, unable to leave the house.
And of course, they don't go out. They're not allowed out. Like, oh, Tate's away, so they go out with their friends. No. You don't go to the club with your friends. I don't know what kind of bitch-ass dude is letting his chicks go to the club with her friends without him. No, you stay in the house. You don't go nowhere. You're not, no restaurants, no clubs, nothing.
As a side note here, check out the color of the pool behind Tate and the time of year with the falling leaves. Going from the Google Earth timeline, the earliest this video could have possibly been recorded was autumn of 2020, 4 years ago. There's another nail in the 10-year coffin. And as for the final criteria in the ACT column, receiving a person, Luana, waiting at the cam house for Gio to drop off the victim, received that victim to begin working her over through the other girls. While the Moldovan girl was at the cam house, whenever she put up resistance against appearing on camera for Tate's benefit, or the coercion from Georgiana and Luana to join the other girls, she was threatened with and subjected to sexual and physical violence, including the 2 reported rapes. That was after Georgiana tried to coerce the victim into joining the other girls on camera to get her comfortable performing for an audience. Fraud comes into play here when the traffickers held false debts over her head, and deception was the promise of a romantic relationship, a marital relationship, that brought her to Romania in the first place. The abuse of power and preying on vulnerability come into play jointly here, as the powerful social media influencers targeted primarily poor and disadvantaged girls. Tristan even admitted on camera during emergency meeting number 10 that his recruitment techniques held no sway over girls that came from wealthy families.
I have recruited, I think, although you've worked with a lot, more girls into, I guess, the adult entertainment industry than anyone else. I really have. And the one type of girl I couldn't recruit were girls with rich parents. Oh, do that for money. I don't need money. My family's rich. So when I see these broke boys on Twitter and on Instagram be like, oh, my daughter, I'm raising her right, and she's like 9 years old, but he like works some crappy job. He's a wagey. I'm like, she's going to get that Louis Vuitton purse one way or another. So you might want to level up your game and buy it for her, my G.
The temptation is certainly there if they're not completely and utterly financially independent or financially secure. If they're completely financially secure, it's more difficult to try and move them into those kind of industries.
That's an interesting addendum from Andrew. Why exactly were these two using tactics to move poor girls into the adult entertainment industry? That kind of contradicts this statement.
The case against me is that I pretended to love girls to make them do TikTok for money. Please listen to this. That's the case against me. I pretended to love girls to convince them to do TikTok to give me the money.
Back to the chart, the only criteria in the means column that isn't absolutely nailed down would be abduction. Although the transportation back and forth by Tristan of the minor child that Andrew had producing porn for him, moving her from Slovakia to England and then to Romania, is already recorded in the arrest document of August 2024. As for the purpose column, there are again multiple selections. Prostitution and pornography tend to go hand in hand. After all, Tate considered himself a pimp, did he not?
This is why I think I have a bit of a following on Twitter, because I have a unique resume. Like, there's a whole bunch of guys on Twitter, but not many, like, world champion kickboxer, pimp, mafia-associated criminal. Like, I've got all this stuff, and everyone's like, who is this dude? Like, surely it can't all be true. Well, it's all true. Yeah, so I did a deal with some Albanians, and I needed some money. We won't go into details. I needed some money pronto. So I'm sitting there, and I had a fight coming up, but the fight was too far away for money, and I needed money today. So I'm sitting there thinking, how can I make money? What do I have that's worth money? Like, what do I have that I can even sell? And I was sitting there, and the only thing I had was all these girlfriends.
If not outright prostitution, then certainly sexual exploitation of these women occurred. Once they were locked in the house, they were not able to choose their own schedules or even what activities they were going to perform on camera. They were told what hours to work, how much money they had to make before they could stop, what to do, how to do it, and even what sex toys they needed to use on themselves during a particular session. They were fined if they came up short on money, if they weren't smiling, if they were crying, if they didn't appear happy, or for whatever else that the Tate's bottom bitches saw fit to dock them for. Tate also often bragged about how he would keep all the money that these girls made.
You get a man with game and give him a female's body, a female avatar, he will fuck a guy up. I had these guys selling their houses, life savings, loans, all of it to me. Give me it all. So like, and it's basic shit, right? You'd have a guy.
Feel bad or no?
Fuck no. To give a solitary fuck.
And labor without pay is a possible definition of slavery. Being forced to do as you're told by someone holding power over you is a form of servitude. Going back to the Moldovan girl, 2 other women listed as victims were instructed by Tate to take the Moldovan girl to a hotel room, get her drunk, so that by the time Tate arrived at the room, she wouldn't be able to fend off the orgy that Tate had planned for the 4 of them to open her up sexually. The 2 girls did as they were told because Tate told them to obey your king, which leaves only the removal of organs, and we are quite thankful we didn't read about that happening at any point of the indictment. However, there were reports of threats to cut out the girls' breast implants when they decided to quit. As you can see from the chart now, with everything outlined in this fashion, Tate not only checked off most of the criteria on the UN protocol, but between Tate, his brother, and their accomplices, they managed to check off the vast majority of them. And still, Joseph D. McBride Esquire is happy telling lie after lie to the podcast host.
These women they're claiming are victims, it's because they were doing OnlyFans or they were doing online webcam stuff, or what is it?
Some of these women were doing that stuff like way back when. These other ones, we have no idea what the hell. They went and they spoke to everybody that the Romanian government could get their hands on, that these guys ever interacted with. At any point in time, did these guys hurt you, traffic you, rape you, hurt you? They all said no. They all said these guys are great. They're gentlemen. They took me out, this, that, and the other thing. The Romanian government doesn't care. It's taking a very paternalistic approach, saying, oh, sweetheart, you're just a little dumb girl that doesn't know what's going on. These guys mine-effed you, and we're going to prosecute them anyway.
You're going to hear this phrase a lot whenever McBride talks about the case. The paternalistic approach of the Romanian prosecutors, as if that's a negative thing, when in fact, it's a matter of being thorough in an investigation to contact all the women from their past, especially where sex crimes are concerned, and victims may have been too embarrassed to come forward on their own. And now, by some accounts, we are up to over 60 victims that have sworn out statements against the brothers across 3 criminal investigations in 2 countries. But as for the girls that Tate says are defending him and his brother, there are a couple of reasons why authorities would take witness statements affirming the Tates with a grain of salt, above and beyond the confirmation that Tate contacted them in advance to buy them off. Here are 2 of the victims from the first Romanian criminal trial, who came forward to declare Tate's innocence after the brothers' initial arrest in December of 2022. This is Yasmina and Beatrice. And just so we're clear, We no longer have any issue using their names to clarify their story and involvement because these girls have publicly named themselves in the press. It's also noteworthy to mention that the Moldovan rape victim named these two women as Tate's accomplices in her Marriott rape. These girls, both attributed to Andrew Tate's trafficking count, did this video because cousin Luke told them to after Andrew Tate gave Luke that instruction. This is verified in the recorded conversations that Tate had with Luke while he was in preventative detention, because the smartest man on the planet, his words,
that's what it is. I'm the smartest person on this fucking planet,
was unaware that his jailhouse conversations could be recorded. And here's what the girls had to say in their joint interview.
I've never seen any of them being aggressive or rude. They've always respected people.
Ai fost amenințată?
Nu. N-am fost niciodată. Dacă eram amenințată, automat nu mai eram idiotă să stau în casa asta. Spuneau că fetele care veneau la ei acasă erau intimidate de securitate cu arme. Eu pot spun că niciodată cei de la securitate n-au intimidat pe nimeni, nu au arme la vedere, nu sunt puși acolo să intimideze fete sau să întâmple alte lucruri. Pe mâna stângă tatuajul ăsta care scrie Tate Girl, pe care l-am făcut din respect pentru ei.
Are you Tate's property?
I'm no one's property. Suntem prieteni buni de 2 ani de zile, cam așa, poți să mă treci pe mine ca și victimă, dacă eu n-am spus că sunt o victimă.
Yasmina has also, on her own social media accounts, put out solo videos saying similar things.
I'm making a public request for the court to remove me as a victim from the case file. Neither me nor Beatrice are victims in this case. Andrew, if you see this right now, I really miss you. I wish I could give you a hug right now. I wish I could talk to you and see you, but unfortunately that's not possible. And everyone remember that this happened to Andrew and Tristan Tate. If this happened to them, it can happen to anyone.
And Vivian, a long-standing Tate asset, who is now named as the minor forced into porn by Tate, was also instructed by Luke through Tate to come up with videos such as this one.
How outraged would you be if your son got taken to a jail while they have no evidence against him, and he got now 2 months to be sitting in a jail? Because that's what's happening right now. They've been sitting there for 30 days in a jail with no evidence, and they extended it for another 30 days. So imagine how outraged and mad would you be if this happened to your son or your brother. They're keeping him in there. If this happens to them, I am worried this can happen to anyone at this point.
We're going to start with Vivian. First, going back to the UN Protocol for Human Trafficking. If the witness is found to have been recruited through deception for sexual exploitation, she is a human trafficking victim, whether she realizes it or not, whether she accepts it or not. Victims of any age cannot consent to being exploited, period. Minor victims under the age of 18 cannot consent to sex with American citizens, thanks to the extraterritorial sexual exploitation laws on the books, and the minimum age for creating porn in Romania is 18. So Vivian can deny it all she likes. She is a victim on several counts according to the law. Second, we know full well from the indictment how Tate manipulates and mind-fucks the girls he's recruiting. The Moldovan rape victim, for example. But through leaked War Room Forum conversations, we know how Tate was demonstrating for the benefit of his students a step-by-step tutorial on how he broke down one of the women who is now defending him publicly. According to the indictment in section 3.2.5, Yasmina is a victim of the recruiter Andrew Tate, first contacted in May of 2021. The indictment transcripts confirm she was controlled in the cam house by both Georgiana Nagal and Luana Radu, and her safety was threatened anytime she stepped out of line. Now, if you're paying attention to the date here, you'll notice that the conversation between Gio, Lou, and Yasmina was after the Moldovan girl's second reported rape, and just before the American victim was to arrive in Romania on April 5th. The manner in which Yasmina was recruited by Tate was spelled out in detail in war room chats that were leaked in July of 2023. Yasmina's situation was held up by Tate to his war room cronies as a particularly stubborn trafficking target, since she was a very religious girl who had promised God she would wait and had never even sent sexy photos to a man online before. Tate and his war room buddies, including Iggy Semmelweis, rapper Ray J, and Joe, who we assumed to be Joe Lampton, all took turns mocking the victim as Tate provided a string of updates showing Tate breaking her down through false allegations of working in a sex club and consorting with tons of men. These were lies that he told his buddies he made up just to test her loyalty to him. Tate admits isolating her from her family, telling her she could never return home unless he accompanied her, and further, that she couldn't leave the house in Bucharest without Tate or Georgiana. Tate told the war room she's broke, and she can't go home, and she can't leave the house. Man, I almost sound evil, he says. He tells the other scumbag pimps and traffickers in the PhD War Room forum that he plans on using G, Georgiana, as his bottom bitch with Yasmina, and that he had already given her the ultimatum, comply or goodbye. And now, this woman has been so brainwashed into compliance with Tate that she releases videos such as this one to try to keep him out of prison for the crimes committed against her. But again, whether Yasmina realizes it or not, admits it to herself or not, she is a human trafficking victim that has been exploited by the Tates, and the prosecutors therefore do not need her compliance or approval to charge the Tates for that crime. Further, Yasmina was caught in many lies during questioning by Dicot. Between her, Beatrice, Gio, and Lou, none of them could keep their story straight about how they knew each other, how they met, or how long ago. And because of this incongruity between stories, Dicot correctly concluded that they had been brainwashed and were actively under the control of the Tates, who moved Yasmina and Betty to Dubai, out of Dicot's reach. So no, Dicot does not have to consider statements of Tate's innocence that are provided by these victims. Dicot's job is to match the criteria to human trafficking, where victims cannot sanction their own exploitation. And it's a good thing, too. To seal off this segment, where Beatrice and Yasmina not being victims is concerned, we will refer to this segment of the indictment from page 223. These 4 paragraphs are condensed versions of events that are explained in full later in the document, taken from a text conversation between Beatrice and another person named as a witness in the case who was dating cousin Luke at the time. The bottom part we've gone over already, the alcohol-fueled orgy rape of the Moldovan girl in March of 2022, that Beatrice sent pictures of to this witness. But the top paragraph refers to another instance where she, Yasmina, and Andrew Tate had a threesome in mid-December 2021. After that romp, Beatrice told the witness she saw Tate refer to Yasmina as a whore, spit in her face, and physically assaulted her as he held her down. To clarify, the platinum blonde in this photo watched Tate physically abuse the brunette, and yet still, the two of them made this video in his defense. Welcome back. Let's get right into part 3, where Joseph D. McBride is about to embarrass himself yet again.
It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. At the end of the day, they're going to be exonerated. They've been asking for a trial since Jump Street. Innocent men don't go, let's go to trial tomorrow. Andrew and Tristan be like, give me a damn trial, bring these allegations out in court, and let's have the fight, standing on our 10 toes down, standing on our own 2 feet in this court, and let's have the fight. Let's prove your case against me or go to hell. It could be another 2 years before they get a trial there.
This is simply not reality. It's a failed flex. This case should have gone to trial months ago, and would have if Andrew and Tristan hadn't kicked the dates down the road by filing non-stop appeals, which had not done them any good whatsoever. Out of desperation, they appealed the evidence exhibits and whether or not they were lawfully obtained. They lost. They appealed the use of CCTV video footage and lost. Then they appealed whether or not the investigators were properly trained on computer software being used for analysis, and they lost that appeal as well. We'll go through that list in detail during our indictment series. But suffice to say, nothing they tried has had an effect on the case moving forward, other than to delay the inevitable. In April of 2024, the court ruled that all evidence in the case file was collected legally and properly, and further determined that the trial can move forward. So what did the Tates do? They appealed that decision as well, telling the judge that their decision was unlawful. Now here we are, 6 months later, and the ruling on that appeal is due out shortly, potentially within a couple of days. There's every reason to believe that this appeal will very likely fail, as the others did, and a trial date will finally be set, which will also, finally, put to rest these tater trash rumors floating around on social media that the brothers are free men. But going back to what McBride is saying here about the big shot Tate brothers demanding a speedy trial on their own 2 feet to prove their innocence, well, once again, that's just absolute bullshit. If Andrew and Tristan went to the courthouse tomorrow and told the court, let's start the trial right away, prosecutors would 100% happily take them up on it.
So how are they getting arrested then? So the judge releases them, which is kind of interesting. How are these police able to go in and seize their property and freeze their money or whatever?
So the way that they do it is they issue an arrest warrant. They say this is a regurgitation of human trafficking allegations.
But how do they get a warrant for this? It gets to a point where a judge just says you're out on bail, but pending trial, or what is this?
Right, you're out on bail. Essentially, if you were to analogize it to the American system, it'd be out bail pending appeal or bail pending trial, right?
Going to stop here to give the Tater Tots a chance to absorb this information. As we said, the Tates are not free men. McBride himself says in the first truthful statement of this interview, the brothers are out on bail pending trial. And the asset seizures go hand in hand with the arrest warrant as proceeds of criminal activity. This is the Romanian process. These assets will be sold off to pay for court costs, incarceration costs, and victim injury settlements, which they are automatically entitled to as victims in the Romanian system.
So
they have a trial set or what?
No, they don't. It could be another 2 years before they have a trial. And the whole idea is to lock them up and silence them and bankrupt them and cancel them, to drag them through the mud and then say, oh, we're just going to give up in the end. But you've already destroyed my life. But these two guys are built different. They're different men. They are committed toward fighting this fight for themselves and for every other man who would come before them. They feel honor-bound and duty-bound to fight this fight because if they fall, they believe that there'll be a lot of other dominoes that fall after them.
The dominoes that the Tates are most concerned about falling are likely the members of their own war room, who have been exposed as pimps and traffickers through the war room forum chat logs. One such leak allowed investigators to identify 45 victims in one fell swoop, all from a 1-year time frame from March of 2019 to April of 2020. Thanks to Matt Shea from the BBC, we know who some of these people are from his documentary released in March 2023 called The Dangerous Rise of Andrew Tate. Here are some of the War Room top officers. Jill Sullivan, codename Sartorial Shooter. Sartorial seems to be a fixer for the Tates based out of Dubai, referred to as their manager, a role that included trying to get Andrew Tate freed from prison and shipped to doctors in Dubai to deal with lung cancer that Andrew Tate didn't have. Then there's this jagoff standing next to Jewel, codenamed Alpha Wolf, who apparently missed his on-screen calling as a villain in Miami Vice.
I'm Alpha Wolf.
Okay.
My role is to be Alpha Wolf.
Okay, fair enough.
Miles Sonkin, pseudonym Egi Semmelweis, codename Shi Yan Hui, a particularly evil degenerate who has pimped out his own wife and whose daughter he plans on trafficking when she becomes of age. He is a self-proclaimed wizard. And Jonathan Bowe, codename Money Pilot, a pilot with Delta Airlines who was put on administrative leave by Delta after Matt Shea released another documentary called Andrew Tate, the Man Who Groomed the World. Money Pilot is often front and center at war room events. And that's just tip of the iceberg. But you can bet each one of these assholes that has come across the prosecutor's radar is going to be investigated for connections to the Tates, connections to organized crime, connections to money laundering, and/or connections to human trafficking. One domino that has already fallen is Hustlers University professor Vlad Obuzic, pseudonym Joe Lampton, who was arrested around the same time as the Tates for the same types of crimes. This smooth-brained moron used the War Room forum to post a video of the bruises he inflicted on his teenaged girlfriend, then wondered why the cops came for him. Vlad is now named as a witness in the first criminal trial against the Tates, and he blames his association with the Tates for his arrest. So yeah, the Tates are worried about the fallout from this. Their pimp and trafficking network is very likely to come crashing down around their ears.
I've seen a lot of videos people have shared that on the surface are indefensible. Him talking about young girls and girls that are underage and things like that by, I would just say American standards. The argument that I've heard is that, but 16's legal in other countries and in certain areas. Not that I think that makes, fine, maybe he doesn't go to jail for it, but it's still indefensible. But I suppose if you're saying these people that they've changed and they're doing something different, then you got to give people credit for that to a certain degree.
Tim needs to be educated on what is and what is not legal age worldwide. So we'll hit this point really hard for his benefit. Legal age in a particular country does not matter, and there are no needles to thread on the topic. Even if you're the world's most dangerous spy on a mission in Switzerland and the German teenage girl throws herself at you.
I am from Germany, where the age of consent is 14.
What is it, the Alabama of Europe?
In many ways, yes, but we can talk about that in bed.
No, we can't.
Thanks to the U.S. extraterritorial sexual exploitation of child laws, Americans cannot have sex abroad with anybody under the age of 18. To do so equates to the statutory rape of a child and carries a 30-year sentence per victim. So it doesn't matter what the laws are in the country you're in. Legal age of consent around the world for Americans is 18. Not 16, certainly not 14. Although Tristan Tate got pretty excited about 15-year-old virgins when he hit 30 years old for some reason.
I'm fucking all these 16-year-old women or 18-year-old women, whatever the law is in America. 18?
It's 18 usually. You get married at 16. I think.
All right, in Romania it's 16, sorry.
Yeah.
When you run game like me and meet the women who I meet and roll in the circles I meet, you meet beautiful virgins sometimes. Me, I'll do 2 or 3 virgins a year.
When you have the Tates saying things like this in public, they're teeing up their own lifetime convictions courtesy of the US DOJ, if any of these children happen to come forward. And if Tim Pool had educated himself on that point in advance, he would have been able to chalk up some credibility here. He was obviously put off by the immoral clips he'd already seen, but he didn't know how incriminating they actually were.
Andrew Tate's got a lot of money, but it's pretty wild what's been going on.
Yeah, it's real wild. And look, people should criticize and be critical of the things that they said in the past. But what I will say is that they were in a much different position 10 years ago in their life. They were up and coming. They said things that had shock value. These are street guys from Luton, from England. They're also American citizens. And they said whatever they needed to say to get on the map to make a name for themselves.
To readdress the claim that the two brothers would be ashamed of the things they were saying 10 years ago, maybe McBride could explain this clip from 5 years ago, when Andrew was talking with Anthony Dream Johnson from Manosphere's 21 Studios just ahead of the 21 Convention 2019 on June 18th, 2019 in Warsaw, Poland.
Once again, not to plug or anything, but in my course we talk about weaponizing your attention because that's the only thing a man has.
I say plug away. What's the website?
It's cobratate.com, and I've got a course on there that basically explains how I got girls to work for me for
Tate's
my webcam.
PhD, right?
It's a PhD course, pimping hose degree.
Fuck yeah. I was wondering what it meant.
PhD, pimping hose degree.
I've seen it. I just didn't know what the PhD meant. I was like, is this his PhD in pimpology? Like, what is this?
But this is who I am. This is what
Zero
I do.
apology.
Yeah, zero apology, and I don't. It's not something I put on. It's not something I fake. People think I'm playing a character. It's like no. This is who I am. This is what I do. Bam. If you don't like it, don't follow me. You know, it's just. I have a relationship. I've been in a relationship for 6 years. I fuck anything that moves. She knows I do it.
Yeah.
And she stays with me anyway. Like I do what I fucking want.
Yeah, it's delusional.
Yeah, it's delusional.
Or how about the live stream that Tristan Tate did 3 years ago with John Anthony Lifestyle? Some very famous Tristan Tate quotes in that episode that streamed live November 26, 2021. John Anthony thumbs through Tristan's Conquest Diary folder named God Mode Game as Tristan is sucking back yet another 10-ounce tumbler of liquor with no ice. Here's Tristan bragging about the 17-year-old that he was hurting during sex for his own pleasure.
Actually, this one, I can't see her body, but that's kind of a hot face.
Oh, Olivia. Jesus Christ. I was the second man she ever fucked in her whole life. Beautiful, big, natural tits. So cute. Man, it hurt her at every moment that I was doing it. But it felt good for me, so who gives a shit?
That's gonna win over the ones that you lost during this podcast if they heard that line.
Who gives a shit?
To clarify, this is not 10 years ago, McBride, not even 5. And as it turns out, the timing of this interview is pretty significant.
I'm flying to Miami in 48 hours. My house is an absolute wreck. It's being renovated as we speak. But
Nice.
yeah, I squeezed you in before Miami, and here I am. Glad to be on the show.
November 26, 2021, and Tristan is headed to Miami in 48 hours. We know now it was to meet the American victim and take her to the War Room Conference for their first date. For close to a decade, Joe, your clients have had absolutely no filter and no regrets about the crimes they bragged on committing until the self-snitching came home to roost.
But as they began to grow and as they began to see that there was influence there, they began to realize that there was a responsibility that came with that influence. And they began to sharpen their minds and sharpen their message and geared it toward positivity and strength for young men. And that's what really pissed the government off. It wasn't like, oh, you were saying this stuff before, we were mad. They weren't coming for them then. They came for them as soon as they started saying a man is a man, is a woman is a woman, be strong, do this, be traditional, blah, 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 blah. Then the government came from them. You can say a lot of the wild stuff. The government will never come for you. You start preaching traditional values and masculine excellence, and they come for your head.
This is a great example of the spin that Tate has been trying to get out about his situation ever since his arrest. That he's pissed off the government somehow by preaching traditional values to young men. We'll tell you what we've been telling people on Twitter Spaces for the past year. The Tates are self-confessed international human trafficking, child raping internet pimp pornographers who have self-snitched themselves to the point where the trial in Romania will be a mere formality.
Double-edged sword for the government. It's made them bigger.
Way bigger.
Yeah. And so if whatever it is they're doing, and I'll state it this way. If these criminal charges end up fizzling out and dissolving, these guys are going to be wealthier and more powerful than they ever were before.
Although the Tates might be enjoying a boost in social media right now, as they pretend to be rebels against the Matrix, once the trial begins and daily updates shatter the perception that tater tots have of their outlaw heroes, that fame will wane. When the Tates are convicted, they will be forced into radio silence. Here's the future that we expect to see for Andrew and Tristan. After their first conviction, there will be another trial for the larger case in Romania, and an expected conviction from that trial as well. Even according to Tate News, a Tate ally, in Romania alone, the brothers are now looking at possible life sentences. Once Romania is done with these guys, if they are still drawing breath, these two Depends-wearing seniors will be boarding a plane to the UK for the criminal trial there that is already prepared to come down on their heads. This talk from Tim Pool about their criminal charges possibly fizzling out is not grounded in the reality of the 3 major criminal trials coming out against them.
100%. And another thing to do is to pay attention to the Florida case that we're litigating, right? Because we're litigating the same set of facts under different laws. It's the same set of facts in the American legal system. We're saying in the court to this woman that she defamed them, she hurt their reputation immeasurably, and she conspired against them to do all these other things, tortious interference with the business relationship, all these other technical terms.
So McBride is obviously not keeping up with the Florida case. Tortious interference and conspiracy have already been stripped out, which makes sense. You cannot be a conspiracy of one, and tortious interference is interfering in a business relationship to the benefit of another competing business. So that was always a bullshit stab in the dark anyway, and any respectable lawyer would never have submitted that claim. Having read the true, complete, and accurate indictment documents in the Romanian case, we are certain that the Tates don't have a chance in hell of making their case. In Romania, neither in Florida.
But we're litigating the same exact facts in that court, saying you knew that you were wrong, you lied, here's the proof that you lied. By the way, here's the history of you destroying men's lives before us. It's in a court, and all we need the court to do is to find the truth here. And the truth is that they're innocent. She conjured up a story with one of her friends to destroy their lives for whatever reason, and then she went on vacation. That's what happened.
McBride is under the false impression that the American victim's history outside the scope of her relationship with Tristan matters at all. No aspect of her life prior to Tristan flying her to Romania on April 5th, 2022, or after the compound raid on April 11th, 2022. It's just dirty tactics that have no bearing. But remember what McBride said earlier?
The latest arrests and everything?
Process is the punishment. And their enemies in world governments and in the banking system and wherever else in the deep state took full advantage of this situation to exploit them and to keep them imprisoned for an extended period of time, which could be several more years. And it's wrong.
Now McBride is telling Tim Pool the enemies of the Tates include world governments, world banks, and the deep state, claiming these organizations kept the Tates in prison for an extended period of time. Joe, they only did 3 months in a relative country club facility compared to where they're headed. Again, attributing deep state level manipulation of their case is a gross overestimation of the number of fucks that governments could actually give Andrew and Tristan Tate.
What is their business now? Like, how do they make money, and what do they do?
Right now there's Hustlers University. They have.
What is that?
It's a university where you can go and they say, look, you don't need a college education to be somebody in this world, right? You don't need to go to any school to be somebody in this world. You can come and learn practical skills to how to make money online or how to interview people or how to network. You can come to our school. We're going to give you transferable skills that'll help you succeed in the business marketplace in the world for $50, $100, $200, whatever it is. When you juxtapose that against an Ivy League education, there's a big difference in the price. And lots of times when you go to college or an Ivy League education, they don't even give you any practical skills for the real world. So it's about setting men up for practical application of skills in the real world to make money online.
There's a lot to dissect here, but we can cut to the quick with a couple of quick points. First, Hustlers University is a pyramid scheme, confirmed by the removal of the Tate apps from both Apple Store and Google Play. This point is irrefutable. Second, this is not by any stretch a university-level education rivaling Ivy League institutions on any front, and McBride telling you the courses or skills are transferable is a dead-ass lie. Third, and most importantly, and pay attention to this point, Andrew and Tristan Tate did not collect the wealth they flaunt through any of these garbage topics taught in their online platform. They did not get rich doing copywriting or drop shipping or e-commerce. They made their money trafficking women, and apparently children, into porn sites, as they've been telling you they were doing for years.
I first made my millions of dollars. The first time I ever became a millionaire was with webcam.
I made so much money in this industry, I just can't quit. I'm addicted.
Remember this valuable piece of advice, because it will do you a lot better than anything Tate is selling you, and will give it to you for free. There is no shortcut to success, and the only people who will tell you otherwise are the ones who will charge you money for their secret. The people whose only true source of income is the fools paying for their advice.
But what he does not get a lot of attention for is all the human rights work that him and Tristan do with Tate Pledge. They give millions and millions of dollars all the time to build wells, to give food, to help people in war-torn villages, to help people restore their lives after one government or another has bombed them out.
Tim Pool couldn't even catch McBride on that line. Charities have already spoken out about how the Tates have promised but never delivered. It turns out that, according to investigative reporters who called BS on that claim, they have spent no more than £30,000 on various charitable efforts as of January 2024. A good chunk of change, but nowhere near the $12 million reported by Tate. Another declaration made by the Tates was that they were assisting Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war zone, and they brought clothing, shoes, and food to the Ukrainian border.
And all of this stuff here is actually emergency foods for my, I was running this personally up to the border of Ukraine. I did 7 trips up there to help the women and kids coming over. So I had coats, shoes, women's clothing, children's clothing, all sorts of emergency foods. So me and the Rolls Royce, but it was my biggest car. I wasn't trying to flex on people. Me and the Rolls Royce and another van full of supplies did a bunch of trips up there.
But wouldn't you know it, it was not out of the goodness of their heart. According to new information that came out September 9th, 2024, Tristan Tate and Luana Radu were planning to exploit Ukrainian refugees on webcam and OnlyFans, with Luana proudly announcing that she had already located 2 girls to join them at the house. Luana and Tristan talk about transporting them to Bucharest, where Tristan would bring them into his agency, Talis Management, advertised as the world's premier OnlyFans management agency. Until recently, the Twitter account for the agency had profiles for several of the Tate webcam girls. Here's one for Yasmina, who went by the screen name Mercedes Hill X, date September 6, 2021, and this one is Abigail Tyson, the mother of Tristan's daughter. There was a whiff of this activity in the Matt Shea BBC documentary, as Tate was introducing Matt to the layout of the renovated warehouse and its denizens, including Georgiana Nagal.
I don't have loser friends. I like sitting down with people and discussing how we can make money from the conflict in Ukraine. That's what I enjoy. I don't want to talk about TV.
Yep, the Tate brothers are totally vying for sainthood here. And now we get to the line in the interview that had people ready to reach through the computer to smack Joseph McBride right upside the head.
These are good men who have done a lot of good for the world, right? Even if you accept all the allegations against them is true, the amount of good that they've done for the world tremendously outweighs the bad. And people don't see it because there's a very one-sided narrative out there against them.
According to McBride, even if the Tates trafficked over 60 women, even if a significant number of them suffered physical and sexual abuse at their hands, even if they trafficked minors and raped children, society should hand-wave all that because of all the good they do in this world, even though that claim of good has already been ripped apart. And here's some more nonsense as we wind down this buffet of misinformation.
So you think that the charges in Romania ultimately are going to end with their exoneration, their victory in this?
Yes. If they get a fair judge, 100%. No reasonable person could ever look at these facts and say that they're guilty of anything. There's literally no evidence. They don't have anything.
As we tell the tater trash in social media forums, this claim shows how completely ignorant people are when it comes to the case. There are 75,000 pages submitted into evidence for the first case alone. 75 volumes of 1,000 pages each. And on top of the written documents, there are hundreds of hours of videos and CCTV footage.
You're effectively taking girls, teaching them how to make unlimited money from home, and then making sure they give it all to you.
All of this evidence has been appealed, reviewed, and cleared for submission by the court as part of the April 26, 2024 decision to go to trial. So, that's McBride with another big L to his tally. A guy who can't even keep his own origin story straight.
So when I looked at the evidence against Andrew and Tristan, and I knew that they were being incarcerated wrongfully and wrongfully persecuted, not for what they did, because of what they believe and what they say, I said, I have to get involved in this case. I have to do something for them because so much is at stake. So for me, legally, match made in heaven.
How'd you end up meeting them and getting on the team?
Some people in my world, in Tate's world, knew each other, and they said, hey, what about this guy? Check him out. They looked at me and said, it sounds good. We met up, and the rest is history. It was.
You went to Romania, right?
Yeah, I went to Romania. I went there with Tucker Carlson. I put that whole interview together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What was your first impression of Andrew and Tristan when you met them for the first time?
They honestly they were exact. So one thing about Andrew and Tristan, as you guys know, is they are who they are in person and online, and I recognize that immediately. Real recognizes real.
Now, instead of having friends in common who introduced him to the brothers, the story is that he swooped in to save the day for them. And the final bit there about Andrew and Tristan being the same people in real life as they are online.
They are who they are in person and online.
Totally contradicts what a lot of tater tots say in defense of them. That these two guys are playing characters that you shouldn't take seriously.
So do you think most of this case, like obviously you are litigating, you're in the courtroom, you're filing all kinds of motions, I'm sure, but do you think a large part of this case is sort of rehabilitating their public image? Because there are a lot of people who look at the Tate brothers and say like, yeah, I guess you inspire young men, but do you inspire them to do the right thing? You've got lots of kids and lots of, you're not necessarily a traditional conservative man.
Sure. So yes, part of my job, part of my duty is to restore their reputation in the court of law and in the court of public opinion. But nobody does it better for them than those two guys right there.
Okay, the female host, Hannah Claire Brimlow, suggested that McBride is filing motions and appearing in court on behalf of the Tates. But as mentioned before, McBride is not licensed in Romania, so he's not doing either of those things in the criminal trial. And, as it turns out, he's not doing it in Florida either in the civil case. We checked, and New York State registered lawyers do not enjoy reciprocity in the Florida court system to practice in Florida. McBride failed to correct Hannah's statement, so that would qualify as a lie by omission on a very important point. So that's the portion of the podcast dealing with the Tates, and it was non-stop nonsense being spewed by their self-proclaimed American legal counsel. As McBride told Tim Pool, he is counsel for both Andrew and Tristan Tate, and it's time to take a look at what that means. It means that McBride, as legal counsel and officer of the court, is allowed to, within the scope of existing laws, plead the case for his clients when they're defendants by trying to find fault with the testimony of witnesses or with the means by which evidence was collected and archived. What he is not allowed to do as legal counsel is lie about evidence, witnesses, or the facts at hand. He can offer alternative theories to substantiate reasonable doubt, but he may not make up facts to produce those theories. In short, a lawyer cannot lie on his client's behalf, neither in court nor in public. Lawyers are officers of the court, and as such, must operate within a code of ethics. which respects the principles of dignity, probity, and discretion. To lie, as McBride has done during this podcast, is below the dignity of the court. Probity, the qualities of having strong moral principles and honesty, have not been on display here, and he has shown zero discretion when relaying these falsehoods and misrepresentations on this program that is viewed around the world. At last count, that episode, Timcast IRL, just on YouTube, had over 337,000 views, and the channel itself has around 2 million subs. That is a very wide net to cast such deliberately false and easily debunked fake news across. To demonstrate what an absolute asshat McBride actually is, let's provide one more example. As we mentioned before, on September 9th, 2024, BBC's Panorama aired a special report about Andrew Tate called Andrew Tate Accused. Within this broadcast were several victims' accounts describing how Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate raped them and physically assaulted them. The program link was shared on Twitter by an account for BBC News presenter Victoria Derbyshire, with the description, "Tate raped and strangled us. Women talk to BBC Panorama." And Joseph D. McBride's response to this post on his public Twitter account? 10 hysterical laughing icons. And the lawyer representing victims of Andrew Tate in the UK was having none of it, politely ripping McBride a new asshole by telling him, "I haven't felt the need or desire to engage with you directly before, Joseph, but there seems no choice but to challenge you to explain why reporting on the stories of victims of alleged rape is funny." As a representative of Andrew Tate, you are, of course, free to defend your client against such allegations, but to seemingly mock rape complainants is quite frankly weird. Why would you embarrass yourself and our profession like this? And that got us thinking, maybe it's about time someone saw fit to report this guy for breach of ethics and bringing shame to the legal profession. See, lawyers do have rules of professional conduct to follow as officers of the court, and that is all lawyers, even the slimy ones like McBride. One of these rules of conduct is an obligation to the truth, as outlined in the American Bar Association website under Model Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 4.1. Truthfulness in statements to others, which reads, "In the course of representing a client, a lawyer shall not knowingly A. make a false statement of material fact or law to a third person, or B. fail to disclose a material fact to a third person when disclosure is necessary to avoid assisting a criminal or fraudulent act by a client, unless disclosure is prohibited by Rule 1.6. This entire interview was McBride knowingly disseminating false information to an entire audience of third parties, with the intent of influencing public and court opinion, as he stated here.
What we were able to do was publish the truth of everything that happened related to that story into the Romanian complaint, right? The complaint has hundreds of paragraphs. The entire story is told there. Once that complaint was published, the Romanian prosecutor, the Romanian judges, the Romanian courts, the Romanian public consciousness, and certainly the Romanian defense team got a hold of it, was able to educate the Romanian public and the court there.
And since that's the case, McBride is in violation of the American Bar Association rules, so he should be up for disciplinary review. To aid in that endeavor, we went looking for his New York State Bar registration number and contact details, easy to find on the New York State Unified Court System database, and there's a couple things on his file that stand out. First, the contact details for the McBride Law Firm, PLLC, on the official state registration website are not the same as what are published on his company website. Now, instead of a virtual office at 305 Broadway, McBride has told the New York Registry that he's got an office on the 6th floor at 99 Park Avenue. Except, according to commercialsearch.com, the entire 31,000 square foot 6th floor of 99 Park Avenue is vacant, individable, and available for lease. And that's confirmed in the building website 99parkave.com as well. The 6th floor of 99 Park Ave is an unfinished, undivided space looking for a tenant. So that's a little weird. But the other thing that jumps out is that McBride's registration with the state as an attorney expired in June of 2024, something he was meant to renew within 30 days of his birthday in April, meaning his registration to practice law in New York State is over 4 months delinquent as of the time of this broadcast. This was confirmed by a phone call direct to the New York State office by talking to a very lovely information clerk. So, if you believe this lawyer, who is delinquently registered in the state where his virtual office is located, who apparently has a false physical address on file with the state, lies publicly every chance he gets about the details of his client's case, regarding an out-of-country trial he's not actually participating in, and has filed intimidation cases against young female human trafficking victims to name them publicly, with the effect of allowing these victims to be harassed at home and at work by an army of tater trash, and also continues to publish unredacted court documents online. If you believe that McBride deserves to be reported to the necessary authorities for disciplinary action and censure, here is all the publicly available information that you'll need to assist you with providing that much-needed public service. And we're going to wrap it up there, but not without first saying something nice after being critical of Tate's American legal counsel. In surfing McBride's Twitter profile for as many photos and timeline points as possible, we came across a post of his that we absolutely agree with, posted on June 14th of 2023. It reads, "Human traffickers are the scum of the earth and deserve the death penalty. Falsely accusing someone of human trafficking undercuts the importance of ending the practice and ruins innocent lives." Totally agree 100%, and we definitely hope that McBride tells the Romanian legal team to lead with this statement during their opening arguments. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Common Sense Skeptic. It has been a while since our last Tate series, but as we get closer to their trial date, we will be getting more updates out, and of course, when the trial starts, we'll be following that very closely. To directly support future Skeptic productions, we have active donation links at GoFundMe, at Buy Me a Coffee, and on Patreon. Links are in the video description. To get the word out about this episode, please share it with anybody who can use this information. Then give the episode a thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed, and ring that notification bell so that you'll know when the Common Sense Skeptic returns.